Line number 25 to 35. If there were water, and no rock. If there were rock, and also water, and water, a spring, a pool among the rock. If there were the sound of water only, not the cicada, and dry grass singing, but sound of water over a rock, where the hermit thrush sings in the pine trees. Drip drop drip drop 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 drop. But there is no water. Explanation. The speaker describes a landscape where water is present and offers a sense of relief and tranquility. The repetition of, if there were, in the opening lines creates a sense of longing and possibility. The speaker imagines a world where water and rock coexist and create a natural beauty. The use of specific imagery such as spring and pool among the rock adds to the vividness of the picture being painted. The lines, if there were the sound of water only, not the cicada, and dry grass singing, but sound of water over a rock, suggests that the speaker desires a pure and simple sound of nature, without the distraction of insects or other noises. The imagery of the hermit thrush sings in the pine trees further reinforces the idea of a natural world that is in harmony. The repetition of drip drop in the final lines creates a sense of a slow and steady flow of water, which adds to the peaceful and calming effect of the image. However, the final line, but there is no water, abruptly interrupts the flow of the poem and reinforces the theme of absence and lack that runs through the rest of the section. Overall, these lines create a vivid contrast to the harsh and desolate landscape described earlier in the section, and highlight the importance of nature and the desire for a sense of harmony and beauty. The use of imagery and repetition creates a strong sense of longing and possibility, while the final line emphasizes the theme of absence and the impossibility of achieving these ideals in the world of the poem. Line number 36 to 42. Who is the third who walks always beside you? When I count, there are only you and I together. But when I look ahead up the white road, there is always another one walking beside you. Gliding wrapped in a brown mantle, hooded. I do not know whether a man or a woman. But who is that on the other side of you? Explanation. These lines can also be interpreted as a representation of the human condition and the search for identity and meaning. The idea of a third person walking beside the speaker and another person can be seen as a metaphor for the search for a deeper sense of self and purpose. The fact that the speaker cannot identify the gender of the third person suggests that this search for identity and meaning is not limited to gender or any other specific characteristic. It is a universal search that transcends individual differences and boundaries. The brown mantle and hood also suggest a sense of humility and anonymity, which can be interpreted as a reminder that the search for identity and meaning should not be driven by ego or the need for recognition. The focus should be on the journey itself, rather than the destination. The use of the word, gliding, and the description of the third person as being, not quite of this world, can be interpreted as a representation of the spiritual or transcendental aspect of this search. The third person may represent a higher power or a deeper level of consciousness that guides us in our search for identity and meaning. Overall, these lines can be seen as a powerful metaphor for the human condition and the search for identity and meaning, emphasizing the importance of humility, anonymity, and a deeper sense of purpose in this journey. Line number 43 to 52. What is that sound high in the air? Murmur of maternal lamentation. Who are those hooded hordes swarming over endless plains, stumbling in cracked earth, ringed by the flat horizon only? What is the city over the mountains? Cracks and reforms and bursts in the violet air. Falling towers. Jerusalem, Athens, Alexandria, Vienna, London. Unreal. Explanation. The murmur of maternal lamentation in the first line can also be interpreted as a reference to the archetypal mother figure in mythology, who represents the nurturing and life-giving aspects of femininity. This can be seen as a contrast to the chaotic and destructive forces that are later described in the stanza, suggesting that there is a need for balance and harmony in the world. The reference to the hooded hordes swarming can be seen as a metaphor for the masses of people who are lost and disoriented in the modern world. The fact that they are hooded suggests that they have lost their individual identities and have become part of a collective, faceless mass. The cracked earth and flat horizon further emphasize the sense of disorientation and fragmentation. The reference to the city over the mountains that cracks and reforms and bursts in the violet air can be interpreted as a metaphor for the cyclical nature of history. The fact that the city is described as unreal suggests that it is a product of the imagination or a symbol for something that cannot be fully understood or grasped. Overall, these lines convey a sense of fragmentation, disorientation, and disillusionment with the modern world. Eliot is highlighting the need for a sense of balance, harmony, and meaning in life, and suggests that this can only be achieved by reconnecting with deeper, more universal values and archetypal symbols. Line number 53 to 60. A woman drew her long black hair out tight, and fiddled whisper music on those strings. And bats with baby faces in the violet light whistled, and beat their wings, and crawled head downward down a blackened wall. And upside down in air were towers, tolling reminiscent bells, that kept the hours. And voices singing out of empty cisterns and exhausted wells. Explanation. The image of a woman drawing her long black hair out tight and fiddling whisper music on those strings is highly symbolic. The hair, a symbol of femininity and sensuality, is pulled tight, creating a tense and rigid atmosphere. The fiddling of the strings could represent a futile attempt to create music out of chaos, or an attempt to control an uncontrollable situation. The bats with baby faces are a disturbing and unsettling image, and their whistling and wing beating adds to the sense of unease. The image of the towers upside down in the air tolling reminiscent bells is a continuation of the theme of disorientation and confusion. The towers, normally symbols of stability and order, are now upside down and disorienting. The bells tolling, reminiscent of something, create a sense of nostalgia and loss, as if the world that once existed is now lost or forgotten. The voices singing out of empty cisterns and exhausted wells is a haunting image. The cisterns and wells, normally symbols of life and sustenance, are now empty and exhausted, creating a sense of hopelessness and despair. The overall effect of these lines is of a world turned upside down, where the familiar has become strange, and the boundaries between reality and fantasy are blurred.